welcome to the first ever Smart Home Pride panel. My name is Jason Knott. I am the editor of CE Pro, and I'm excited to be part of this panel today. And with June being Pride Month, we thought it would be a great opportunity for the industry to gather and discuss how well the industry is actually doing in terms of diversity and inclusion, not just in the LGBTQ community, but also talk about people of color, women in the industry, ageism, other diverse industry issues that I know sometimes it could be difficult to talk about, but this is really, I think, an exciting thing that we're being able to do today. So I want to mention to everybody, this is not meant to be a preachy event. We're here to have an open and frank discussion with everybody to talk about how not only the industry as a whole can benefit from a discussion like this, but how you might possibly be able to benefit within your own company. So I'm very excited for this today, and I hope we have we've got a really good wide-ranging discussion for you today. So let me jump right in and do some introductions, and I'm going to introduce everybody and then have them give us a little 30 seconds or 1 minute about their history in the industry. So first, let me start with Giles Sutton. Giles is the interim co-CEO at CEDIA. Hi, Giles.
Hi, Jason.
Tell us a little bit about your industry history.
So I've been in the industry pretty much my entire working career. I graduated from the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts in Sound Technology. I was an integrator in London for 13 years before joining CEDIA and working for CEDIA for 3 years as interim co-CEO. Before I founded my own firm in London, I actually worked for a number of large integrators as well. And I've pretty much had every role there is to play in the industry, from being a technician on site, a programmer, project manager, and also a system designer, as well as obviously running my own company as well. So pretty diverse range of roles within the industry. But yeah, very excited to be here and to hear other people's stories and to share some experiences that I've had. So thank you very much for inviting me to attend.
Yeah. Welcome. All right, next, Alex Salatro, CEO of Josh AI. Hi, Alex, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks, Jason.
Tell us a little bit of history.
Sure. So unlike Giles, I did not grow up in the industry, but I've been involved for about 6 years now. Background, started as a research scientist, worked for a bunch of different government labs and different technology companies, and really got into the sort of technology innovation space, the startup space. And I started Josh AI 6 years ago when I was renovating a home and just dealing with the frustrations from the client side, not understanding the difference between all these trons and, gadgets and screens, and it all felt overwhelming. In the 6 years that I've been involved with the industry, gotten quite involved with CEDIA, currently on the board, serve as the treasurer, was involved with the Technology Council, and just a big fan of the whole industry growing. I think more than ever, the professionally installed space is extremely important. And I'm so glad we're having this panel because, we'll talk about personal experiences, but I came in feeling a little bit like an outsider. And it was, through some of the people I met that I felt welcomed and, really got to embrace the community. But I think we've got a long way to go to be even more open and welcoming. So just excited about the future of this industry.
All right, thanks for joining today, Alex. All right, next, industry icon, Bill Scare, who really doesn't need any introduction to the industry. Bill's the principal at Home Theater and Technology. But Bill, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for that glowing introduction. Every time I go to tell a little bit about my story, Alex always just cringes because it's been kind of a long road. But I started out as an Air Force management analyst. When I got out of the Air Force, I started into the custom integration industry pretty quickly after that. And so I've been an integrator for about 41 years. And during that time, I've become a founding member of CEDIA. I was elected to the board 7 times, and currently serving my 14th year on the board, which seems ridiculous, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have that perspective of where we came from. I've been the ethics committee chairman for the association for about 2 decades. I've held almost every position imaginable in CEDIA. They gave me the Lifetime Achievement Award a number of years ago, thinking that I would, but somehow or another I didn't get the message. And so they said, okay, we'll make you a fellow. Now you should go away. And that still, here I am again. But it's been a really great industry, and I've loved it. And everything that I do is because I can. So I enjoy it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bill. All right. Next, let me introduce Juliette Prater, who is the founder and CEO of Modern Life Technical Solutions. Hi, Juliette. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me be a part of this panel. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I came into the industry from the pro music, pro audio video side of things. I was a musician for many years, session musician mostly in LA, did some touring and all throughout was able to, play in some of the best live concert halls and record in some of the best recording studios in the world. And little did I know that was a little training to be where I am now. I started had a music for Mac tech company just to start with, and I was loading and building computers for pro audio and video software, and became a beta tester for Pro Tools and Digital Performer. And while we were able to start bringing everybody, the recording studios to the people's, the composers and producers' homes, I started building the rooms there. And then it was like, we had a security camera on the 2-inch tape, and all of a sudden we needed to figure out how to let the musicians in at the gate. And then, we're doing tracking strings from Abbey Robes. I had to learn anything about networking, and one thing just kind of led to the other. And before I know it, they were like, hey, my room sounds and looks so good. Can you do my living room? And it just kind of turned into Modern Life Technical Solutions. And here we are today. We do high-end residential. We have everything under one roof, both networking, audio, video. We're APA certified partner. We try to be the one call for all of our clients' technical needs. So we do post-production, recording studios, and some amazing screening rooms and full home solutions for big estates in LA.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Last but not least, Jacob Whipple, product manager at Snap One. I got it correct, the new name today. So welcome, Jacob. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started at Control 4 16 years ago. So I'm Gen 1 Control 4. I was in our testing and validation department. I got to play with all the toys, which was fantastic. Ran our Charlotte Education Center for 11 years and just moved over to the marketing department. So gone from playing with the toys to explaining the toys to writing the stories about the toys.
What's amazing is it's so exciting that this panel, we're talking about diversity, because just look at the diverse backgrounds of what brings everybody into this industry. It's amazing. So welcome, Jacob. All right. I want to start with you, Alex. Alex is really kind of the genesis of putting this panel together. And Alex, why do you think having a discussion like this and a panel like this is so important for the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll certainly give my thoughts, but I'm also super eager to hear the thoughts of the other panelists. For me personally, I was a little surprised to hear this is the first time something like this has been done for this channel, at least the first that I'm aware and the first that the people I've asked have been aware. And as we started thinking about this, June has been a pretty big Pride Month. You see companies like Apple and BMW and Google, spreading the news on social media. And our industry almost feels like it's not happening. It almost feels like, we're all busy, we're all, working hard, but not acknowledging Pride Month is something that we thought would be a good opportunity. And as we started pulling this panel together, it became even more clear to me why it was important. So about half the people that I initially reached out to join had said, I love that this is happening, but I don't feel comfortable being out. I don't feel comfortable putting my name on this panel. And that just shows me that although many of us think that our industry is open and accepting and, a very welcoming place for everyone, people are not bringing their full selves to the game. They're, hiding, they're, not feeling super comfortable. And then when you dive in deeper, you realize this is truly the best time to be an out LGBT person, but we still have a long way to go. So for example, I was looking up some stats before this panel. I was amazed to hear that about 25% of LGBT youth have attempted suicide in the last 12 months. 1 in 4, that is a crazy stat. And about 75% of LGBT youth have been harassed in one form or another because of their sexuality. And so this is an interesting time for us as an industry, but also us as a society, because we're seeing progress. We're seeing a lot of forward momentum. I don't feel at all nervous being out here. I'm excited to be here, but I can't say the same for everyone. And my hope in doing this is that we as an industry can be more opening, more welcoming, and more people will feel like they want to be part of this channel, as opposed to feeling like they don't belong or they don't fit in.
Yeah, fantastic. Giles, what's your perspective?
So obviously those are very alarming statistics. Alex just recalled that, and as he was talking, I was thinking actually where I think there are some challenges. I think one of the things that a lot of young people feel, and I was the same, having been in the industry for many years, and having played many different roles. And when I started my company, it was just me. I had to almost have a number of different personas in my life, because this is an interesting industry in that we kind of cover both, the design and build, the whole sort of design professional world, but we also are on the build side as well. So we have we have to be in a number of different environments, and I think it's fair to say that some environments are more accepting than others. Now, it's true that even in the design profession industries, they still have a diversity problem. It's certainly in architecture, it's predominantly a male industry. But I think one of the things is, when I think back to when I was first working for some integrators at the start of my career, I didn't feel comfortable sharing my sexuality with my peers. And I think what really needs to happen within the industry is business owners need to be more demonstrative in having a diversity and inclusion policy, so employees know that their leaders have their backs. I think that's the key thing. I think we are probably in this panel, we have to admit we're in a position of privilege. We're all leaders within the industries, and we're in organizations that support us. But I think, while I don't think the industry has a racism problem, I don't think the industry is homophobic, I don't think that at all. I think everyone needs to realize that they have a role to play in changing things. And that really starts with the business owner. The business owner needs to be more demonstrative, because you may think that your workforce is entirely straight, but the chances are they may not be, or there may be someone within that workforce who's confused, who's come from a background that isn't supportive. And I think it's really important. That is where it really starts from. It's the business owner really saying that they have the backs of all their employees, and creating a place where they can feel comfortable sharing their life, because otherwise it's very hard to make those connections. When I think back, if you're hiding a part of your life, you cannot make those deep connections with your peers. So you're always slightly on the outside. And that's something that was really, really challenging for me at the start of my career. So I think things are really definitely moving forward, and this panel is, a fantastic start to that. But like Alex, we definitely still have a long way to go.
You bring up the construction site situation, because we know that can be a macho environment, for lack of a better term. I can remember putting myself through college, working for a tile company in LA, and being labeled as college boy on the job site, and got to the point where I was ashamed to even mention that I was going to college, because I was being ostracized on that construction site. So you mentioned that, Giles, and I could see that particularly as an integrator being an area where it's tough.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where your employer has to really kind of step in. I think we've all heard, discrimination on a job site. I mean, I think it's towards women, towards, you know, towards gay people, to people of color sometimes, you know, it is that there's a way to go in the construction industry. Things do need to 100% improve there, but I think this is where the employer needs to sort of make it very clear that they are, that if an employee feels uncomfortable on that job site, that they will do something about it, you know. And I think that's really the role that an employer has. But yes, it's those different environments, it's the different personas that we all have to wear. And I think it's not just gay people that have to do that. I mean, honestly, a lot of people do need to adapt to the environment they're in. That's normal, but I think more so in our community, I would say.
So Jacob, I know when we spoke earlier in the week, you were mentioning prior to joining Control 4, you'd actually had an issue with this in a previous employee or the previous employer.
Yeah. So before I started Control 4, I had been fired at one point in my life for being gay. So when I got interviewed for my Control 4 position, I made sure that they knew right out of the gate, this is what you're getting. They fortunately were very approving, but the point of the importance of this panel is that those types of conversations are had. This brings all the problems that we're facing, all the issues and obstacles that we run into to the forefront so that they can be addressed. If you don't know that it's a problem as a cisgendered, straight, white man running an integration shop, then you don't know to make these concessions or to allow for those situations. So this brings those conversations to the rest of the industry so that they can make it better.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Bill, you know, I again glowingly said you're an industry icon, and wasn't blowing smoke there. That's absolutely true. But you mentioned, you know, 40 plus years in the industry, and you say you've never really faced any sort of discrimination at all.
You know, it's a lot just about me, I think. I'm just as strange as they come. So for me, it's a little bit, I've just never experienced it. And that's one of the things when Alex asked me to be on this panel with you guys, I was going, well, I don't know if I have much to add because in my experience, you know, we started our company a long time ago. We had our heads down. We worked so hard. We didn't pay any attention to anything, any outside noise. Just didn't look up. I mean, that's just the way in the integration world a lot of times. You don't have time to sit around and think, oh my gosh, somebody is, you know, just did a bad thing about me or any of that kind of stuff. It just didn't happen to me, and I probably wouldn't have noticed if it had, because I was just too busy. So when I go back and look at things like when you walk into the headquarters now, there's a wall that happens to have my face on it, which is, I don't understand, but it's there. And on that wall, there's it doesn't look like it used to, because when we first started this thing, it was a lot of just white guys. And so now when you walk in there, there's 9 pictures on the wall, just sort of showing different integrators and people involved in the industry. It is very, very different than it was in the past. So when I look at people like Amanda Wildman and Jamie Briesmeister and a lot of other women that have pioneered their own companies and they've just killed at it. So we've come a long way in diversity in general. But for me, it's been, I just sort of pressed on without paying much attention. I sold my first company after 35 years and decided to get into the manufacturing side. And even through all of those other, and then I started another integration company. So through all of those things, I haven't seen it. And being on the board with a bunch of white guys, you know, for all these years, I've just never experienced it. So I think a lot of it is how you react to other people around you. I think if you have a chip on your shoulder, then a lot of times that sort of shows. And so for me, it wasn't so much that I was being put upon. I understand the horrible things that have gone on with a lot of other people, but I just sort of focused on what I was doing and pressed on. And so I haven't experienced the same negative things that a lot of other people have.
Very eloquent. Juliette, let me turn to you. You kind of have a double whammy, being a woman in the industry, you know, and I can cite CE Pros. It's the one data point I can pull out from this diversity conversation. CE Pro, our readership is 96% male. So it is a very male dominated society or custom installation industry. As Bill said, it's progressing, but tell us kind of your perspective, both, you know, as a woman and as a lesbian, how it's been facing this industry.
Yeah, you know, I've had a very interesting and fun journey in ever since I was young. I was always the only woman in the room, right? I was the only female in the band, and now more than not, I'm the only female at the design table and, you know, on the construction site. And I learned early on that, you know, for me, you know, I've always, you know, since my 20s been out, and being the only woman, we'll just start there. I just knew that I had to know more and be better than anyone else in the room if I was going to be accepted. And I think that put a lot of pressure on me. But at the same time, I knew that I had to deliver and I had to represent, you know, women and open a door for someone that perhaps could be behind me, right? So that's just how I took it. And, you know, I'm passionate about this industry. I love what I do. And, you know, in regards to being out, you know, I haven't really personally had any issues being out in the room. But again, I have to say, as I think we all know, sometimes it's easier to be a lesbian around a group of men than it is to be a gay male around a group of straight men. And, you know, so I've been lucky in that way and to a certain extent. But I think, you know, it's just really important for, I want to touch on a couple things. One thing that Alex said, you know, we have done volunteer work for Trevor Project because of the high suicide rates in our community. And I think that as integrators, as individuals in our community, for all the attendees, I invite you all to help with your skill set to an organization local to you so that we can help those groups and communities grow. And then, you know, I think we've just got to, you know, Bill, you said, you know, you haven't had any issues, but just your being willing to come on means that somebody has an ally in our community, in the AV industry, you know. And I think it's important for them to see faces in our industry because it is so straight and so male oriented. And, you know, I invite anybody on this panel or any attendee to reach out at any time. You know, we're always trying to hire diversity is our focus. And, you know, we're here for everybody, even if it's to help your business or help you along wherever you are. I just want to extend a hand from Modern Life to everybody. We're here.
Let's kind of pick up on that point, and, you know, I think some tangible, I say, suggestions or advice or commentary, whatever we want to label it as, that we can give to the audience about what they can do. You mentioned that, but, you know, Alex, I'll turn back to you. You know, what do you think are some good steps that people, the suppliers, the distributors, the integrators, anybody involved in this industry can do to, you know, expand their diversity and inclusion within their company?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm going to give a somewhat abstract answer because I really want to hear from Jacob and Giles and stuff, some ideas they've got. But for me, I think the most important thing is to really understand why this is important, because that sort of paves the way to the actual actions. And so I just want to spend a quick minute talking about the reason we call it Pride Month, and the reason that the word pride is associated is because in the LGBT community, there's actually a lot of shame associated with this. People often are hiding who they are. They're ashamed of who they are. They might have been kicked out of their home by their parents. You know, they might have had, as Jacob experienced, lost a job because of it. There are all sorts of shameful things that happen. And Pride Month is really about saying, you know, I'm going to step out of the shadows and I'm going to be proud. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be clear about who I am. And I think if you think about someone being in the rooms with us, whether it's at a client project or at a conference, or any of these different events that we have, and you think that they might be in the closet, or maybe you don't even think, but the chances that someone might be, there's that associated shame, there's that associated shyness. And the more that you can create an environment where people can be their authentic self, they can bring their full selves to the table, that's when we start to really move things forward. And so to Juliette's point, having allies, seeing people like Bill and Giles, who are industry leaders that are out, allow other people to see, wow, those people in these amazing positions are not hiding. Maybe I don't need to hide either. And so I think there are a lot of specific actions that stem from that notion of just trying to help people stop hiding from the shadows and really be comfortable being out and knowing that it's okay and they're not going to be discriminated against for doing so.
Yeah, very good point. Giles, what are your thoughts? What are some tangible steps?
I think it's really important that the industry shows what it aspires to be. I think one of the challenges is that we don't show a lot of diversity. And that what I'm talking about is not just, websites, but we don't, you need to show diversity as often as possible. Because one of the things that people say is, well, no women want to work in this industry. And actually, well, if you look at how the industry appears in the press, on websites, it looks very, very male. And I think that's one of the things, is that you need to be more overt in showing that you are more accepting. And there are some really big manufacturers like Vivint Smart Home that do that in a lot of their imagery, showing diversity. And I think that is something that we need to do more of. And I think also, I think this panel is also a good step towards there being more role models and figures within the industry that you can potentially latch onto. And actually that will give you the confidence if you are uncomfortable being more open about your sexuality. I think back, and I think Alex and I have a similar kind of experience, in that it was someone on the CEDIA board that actually gave us the confidence to actually be more open. And actually up until that point, I was a CEDIA member, and then I was a CEDIA board member in the UK. And I had a partner for 13 years who never came to a CEDIA event. And it's only still until I actually met a strong role model that actually I felt confident in being able to talk more openly about it. So I think there needs to be, as Juliette, offered, I think there needs to be a more people that are comfortable mentoring people, helping people through some of these challenges. And I would say, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I would say I have an open door. Juliette has an open door as well, as she's just stated. So if there are people that want to talk about it, then please do reach out to us. So I think that's really the key things is having someone strong that you can really learn from.
Just when you were talking there, just reminded me, think of how long the term wife acceptance factor was used in this industry as a commentary that we're going to do all this stuff, but gee, let's hope that the wife will accept it. Just by the mere fact of having that phrase exist in this industry for many years as it did, was a negative, I believe. So, Bill, let me turn to you. What advice would you give out there for people as to why they should, be more diverse and inclusive in their organizations?
Well, more diversity you can get in perspective always helps, regardless of whether it's an association or whether it's business or whatever. In my personal life, I was telling Juliette yesterday that I have the most ridiculously diverse group of friends on the planet. It really is very enriching for my life to have such a broad group of people. But there's a couple of points that I wanted to make is that they're just weird observations. So I would tell you that for till I was 46, I never said the word gay as it pertained to me. And so as time went on, after that, there was a major life event that happened, important now, but but all of a sudden it put me in a position where I wasn't trying to hide anything. I never kind of felt like I was hiding anything before, just nobody ever asked me. And so I kind of felt like if they had the nerve to ask, I'd have had the nerve to answer, but just nobody ever asked. So oddly, I ended up on the board still, or again, it happens all the time. And at that time, and when what I noticed was that as other board members began to notice that I was no longer hiding part of myself, that things changed. So where it used to be everybody came in and very formally shook everybody else's hand, it went from that to a place where everybody was hugging me. And so the next guy that come in the door, then there'd be handshaking. But every time that happened to me, they'd hug me. And so I took that as an opportunity to understand that when people know you and really know you, they treat you very differently than when you're hiding part of yourself. So I'm not trying to tell anybody to run out and come out, because that's on your own time. That's your own business, and you do it whenever it's right for you. But for me, it was different than I think a lot of people. And so because Giles touched on this a while ago, my husband did as an artist, and he did a show back in March of 2012. It was called Remove Your Mask. And the whole concept built around that whole show was all about the fact that all of us, straight, gay, doesn't matter, we're all wearing different masks for different events in our lives. So we have our business mask, and we have our personal mask, and we have our mask that we use around our friends. And when you get to the point where you can begin to take pieces of those masks away and allow other people to really know you for who you are, it is amazing how differently you're treated than if you're running around with a chip on your shoulder and always scared to death that something's going to happen. If you start peeling those layers of mask away, I think you'll find it's quite different.
You know, following up on that, you had mentioned that just the mere fact that you can openly say your husband has actually been kind of liberating in terms of people responding, and you don't, it kind of eliminates the need for explanations, and that's, you know, the fact that you are married has been actually beneficial in terms of that with other people.
It has made life a lot easier because now, because you know, for a long time it was really difficult. You could say my partner, and so I had a partner before, and people would go, "Well, what do you mean by partner?" Well, I was too stupid to know that they had another meaning. So for me, I was just, you know, dumbly moving along through life. When I would explain this was my partner, well, people would go, "Well, what kind of partner?" Well, so so when you can't actually identify it, and people begin to know that this is your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your whatever, and when they know this is your significant other, then it does open up things to make it a little bit more plain and a little bit less scary.
Fantastic, Jacob. Let me turn to you. You know, you had obviously I'd seen you'd shared with the rest of the panel a really poignant a blog that you had put together on your experiences. But what advice would you give to people who are watching and listening to this about what they can do, steps they can take?
So my early days with Control 4, Prop 8 had happened in California, where they defined marriages between man and a woman. I got kind of upset and became an LGBTQ activist. And I organized a lot of protests and some marches and rallies, and I was in the news on the front page. I didn't have any backlash at work, and that was a good thing. But years later, I found out that someone in senior management had said, "Let Jacob do his thing." Someone looked out for me. Since then, I've had a fantastic friend and mentor who gave me a couple of really amazing opportunities. And because of those opportunities, I was able to grow and progress as a person, at work, get me to the point where I am right now. I had help. So even as a cisgender white man, might be gay, but I can pass, I had help that got me to this point. Everyone else needs that too. So my recommendation is for all of those who are in a position of power.
Oh, I think Jacob just froze on us. Am I seeing a froze? Is everybody else seeing that he froze? Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll click back in. All right, Juliette, let me turn to you. You've already kind of issued some great commentary about your willingness to help others. Tell us what steps you think others might be able to take to be more diverse and inclusive.
Well, I'll shift that just a little bit. I'll just talk about company cultures, right? So at Modern Life, when we hire folks, we talk about the company culture first. And we let everyone know that we want to be the best at what we do and have a nice day doing it. And that means that everybody, and I started this way because it's a really easy way for people to wrap their head around it. Every single job, every single employee is just as important as the other. The pre-wire guy gets the same amount of respect as a project manager or a programmer. Across the board, we're all equal, and we all have to work together to be the team that leads us to a successful, project in the books as done, right? So we start there, and then I literally don't put up with any drama, period, and that means no disrespect. And when you start to invite people to be like part of a successful team, part of a family, what isn't part of that is disrespectful, behavior towards anyone, period. And we just try to keep it fun at Modern Life. Like, hey, let's let's get in there today. Let's work at it. Let's be a team. And I try to look for diversity in every hire. It's very hard to find women. It's very hard to, sometimes find diversity, but you have to at least try, in what roles you can. And I do want to talk to some of the panelists are talking about being a woman in the industry, and some that are straight are then, ridiculed for being a lesbian. Oh, she's a dyke, she's a this, because she's a woman in our field. And I would say to that, as if you're an employee and you hear that that type of vernacular being used, you have to speak to it. Everybody has to be part of the solution. It can't just be from the top down, although that will lead the ship, right? But as employees, as people in our community, as neighbors, we all, as friends, we all have to be willing to say, hey, that's not okay. And this is why. Because a lot of times it's fear that generates that. And we need to once say something about it. And the other two is be really good at what you do, be friendly, be accessible in the field. And then guess what? Sometimes you're going to be totally surprised to hear that you're a lesbian. And then that's going to shift their viewpoint on, oh my God, he's gay. Like someone like Bill, well, no one knew for so long that he was, but then you find out and you're like, wow, that guy's great at what he does. And he's gay. Wow, I just might have shifted that. They might have shifted their viewpoint of being gay, because it's not just the people who are really obviously gay or lesbian. Those people exist in our community, but we all look like different things, and we all act like different, different shades of gay, right? And it's harder for those people who are more obviously gay. But we also have an invitation as those who maybe aren't so apparent to like be out, because it's an invitation for those around us to maybe look at gay and lesbian different in our community. So everybody's got to be willing to have the conversation, to stand up to employees, friends, and neighbors, and to, if you're gay and lesbian, like rock it, be the best at what you do, reach out to people on this panel, anybody to grow and learn, because the better that we are when we're out, the perceptions will change slowly but surely.
Yeah, just to
well said. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so just to jump on that, one of the things Juliette mentioned that I think is really important, if you're a leader in your organization, you definitely need to lead by example. Unfortunately, it means you do need to be better. If you make a snickering comment, you set the tone that that's acceptable in your organization, and it trickles down. But at the same time, you're not going to be present for every conversation. You're not going to be on every job site. And you need to try to create a culture where people will sort of police each other. People will, stand up for one another. And it's not always easy to do. But I've certainly had some experiences where a manager in my company was told about a conversation, they were not there, but a discussion needed to happen about, they didn't realize they were, accidentally being offensive. And sort of an example of this was, my company looks at holidays like many other companies do. They're, celebrated days off, Thanksgiving, Christmas, July 4th, that kind of stuff. But we don't always think about what's the meaning behind the holiday. And so a couple of years ago, we were making the decision, do we give Martin Luther King Day or do we give President's Day? Because the way the calendars worked, we sort of had a certain number of PTO days, and it was going to be one or the other. And we looked around, and it was, I think, 70% of organizations we looked at gave off President's Day. And we said, oh, let's just do what most other companies do. And it took one of our employees to say, MLK Day is not just a holiday for everyone. It's an important day for the Black community. And when you really think about it, there's meaning behind most holidays. And so we had to really re-examine, what decisions do we make around what holidays that we give off. And this year, a bunch of us got caught by surprise with Juneteenth, became a national holiday 2 days before the day. Juneteenth fell on a Saturday. So it was a little bit of an odd one, but our company has said, we care about diversity and inclusion. This is going to be a holiday every year moving forward. And stuff like this, the details are so easy to miss, but you realize if Juneteenth falls on a weekday and you don't give off, you're not really being open and inclusive to everyone. It's, that type of a holiday.
Very well said. There's some good questions coming in, but I want to go back to Jacob. By the way, Jacob, I can assure you there was no jokes made about Arachnus or Access Networks routers when you cut off there. So I can assure you.
How many engineers does it take to run a Zoom call?
Yeah. But you were talking about the importance of mentorship and what that had meant to you, and I want to let you finish off that point.
Yeah. So for straight people, you have a part to play in this as well. You can be someone who, as they were just saying, leads by example, by showing that these aren't jokes that we allow at work, that these are matters that are important to us. For those who are out in the industry, it's important that we make ourselves visible, because that gives other people role models and examples they can look to. They can see that it's okay. And for those that don't, we're a very similar shade up here. There are many colors of white on this panel, and I recognize that. I tried to get us to find someone, but in order to do that, we need more people of color in the industry. We need more women in the industry. We need more lesbians and trans women of color in the industry. But to do that, we need to let them know that it's okay to be in the industry. So going to one of the questions in the chat, what are some of the practical things you can do? Now, last year, Supreme Court ruled that it's illegal to fire off of sexuality or gender expression. And that was last year during zombie apocalypse, so most people missed it. But even though in the US it's illegal to do so, it should still be in your handbooks. If you put that in the employee handbook, it is official. If you put the holidays in the handbook, that's official. And that means it is blessed by the company, and that's what the company stands by and toward. Little things like changing your logo so it has rainbow colors during the month of June. Those are fantastic. I get the complaints that it's the over-capitalization of pride, but you know what? If you go back 25 years ago, scared little boy going through the mall, if I had seen rainbows all over the place, I'd be a very different person right now. We need to have that accessibility and that confidence built up within the industry. So if we can show women of color, if we can show anyone else, they'll see themselves in the industry. So for those who have power, position, and leadership, be a protection for them, be an umbrella, take the crap so that they can grow and they can bring more diversity in. There have been studies done that have shown that greater diversity within a company increase revenue and creativity within the company. Scientific facts. So it's a matter of making them feel comfortable doing so. And practical applications, make sure your handbook's updated with all the protections. Make sure that your hiring process and interview process cater towards. Don't just take a look at the universities. Education's an education. You can solder a circuit board or you can't. And if you start looking at universities and siphoning off applicants based on that, you're going to lose a lot of people of color, or lose those who wouldn't have gone to college because they couldn't afford to, but still have those skills.
I'll put social media in as another element there. You mentioned the website, but just, it's a simple and easy thing to do to, display the rainbow during Pride Month for social media. There was one question I had, and I just lost it. But Giles, is there any other practical thoughts that you could think of that you think integrators, or not just integrators, but any company can do to help elevate? I noticed one of the commentators was saying just a little thing like putting the pronoun definitions in when you're sending out on an email signature can help.
Really quick, we just did that with our brand new name. We put out an email asking everyone in the company, as you update your signature with Snap One, add your pronouns.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's been some amazing points made here on things that organizations can do. I also think, having offering diversity training to your teams as well is something, it's readily available out there as well. And having that defined diversity policy when it comes to both recruitment, but also discrimination internally. So I think there's absolutely, I think the things that were covered there are very, very important. But as I go back to, I think I really do believe imagery is so important. And as I mentioned earlier, it's just demonstrating who we inspire to be. So showing diversity on company websites as much as possible. It just shows that the industry is more open. And even though we may not be there yet, it's, I would not say it's tokenism. I would say this is just showing what we aspire to be. And that's the only way that we will get there, is through these small steps. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's these small steps that will get us to being more inclusive and more representative of society. That's what this is all about, really. And as Jacob said, I've spoken to a number of company leaders in the last week or two, knowing that I was going to be doing this panel, and they take pride in their diverse staff. And actually, it's shown that a more diverse team leads to a more successful organization. So as Jacob mentioned, so that's really a critical piece to this.
Yeah, I think, we have a diversity and inclusion initiative in our company. And I think Jacob hit on a really good point here. And again, I don't think that it's disingenuous to say that by being more diverse and more inclusive is good for business. Just from a bottom line standpoint, it's good for business. So it's really, a positive thing that you're doing for your company, as well as what you're doing out there from a customer standpoint. All right, I want to close out and kind of go around robin here and ask what grade we would give to the industry, maybe what it was 5 years ago, where it is today, and where we hope it'll be 5 years from now. Alex, let me start with you.
Oof, this is a tough spot. Yeah. Okay, so I've been in the industry for 6 years. When I first got in, it definitely felt not as open as it feels now. So I would say we've certainly progressed, but I definitely see a lot of area for improvement. So I think I would go with something like 5 years ago, a B-, now maybe like a B+, maybe an A-, depending on, the group and the day. Certain conversations make me think we're an F, but, averages, I think we're 90%, in a good place. But 5 years from now, I'm hoping we're a solid A or A+. So I think we're certainly moving in the right direction.
Juliette, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is going to sound perhaps a bit harsh, but I only say this as an invitation. I think we're at about a C, if I'm honest, and that's being positive. I think they're on job sites. I'm more, some of you guys are in manufacturing. I'm more in the day-to-day. I'm on the construction sites. I come across different folks, and again, I see everything as an invitation, right? Even someone who's being, derogatory, I'll go out of my way to talk to that person and to befriend them. And, even as a company, we'll have a barbecue, we'll bring popsicles on hot days, whatever it is, it's, I'll just take everything as an invitation. But I think we've got a long way to go. And I'm excited to hear about, Snap, and what they're doing. And Jacob, everything that you're talking about is the beginning of the change. And it's so substantial and it's so needed. And when we start to normalize being gay by putting our pronouns on our email, or, just being out and being on a job site or in a company that's, really, kicking it, right? The perception starts to change. So it's little by little, but I still think we have quite a long way to go. There's I heard of a trans colleague that I spoke to that while she was in transition, they wanted to fire her. And this is a pretty well-known manufacturer, and she wasn't welcomed. And that wasn't really that long ago. So I just think that we have to have these types of conversations. We have to stick up for one another. Our allies needs to stick up for us. And again, we have to keep having the conversations and keep doing better. And I look up, like Alex, I look forward to the A.
Great perspective. And, it's so easy to look at this industry and compare it against other industries that I think are doing much worse than we are. And I'm sure there are others that are way ahead of this industry. Jacob, your thoughts?
So going by rules and such, employee handbooks, I think we're doing pretty good, maybe an A. I know Control 4 had employment protection for gay and trans for years. However, practice is something very different. If you look at this panel, if you look at CE Pro readership, how many people would actively seek out a trans woman of color to be one of their lead sales or to do coding? The representation shows that we have a fault. So we may have rules in place that would hopefully guarantee that they have a safe place, but we haven't created that safe place for them to actually be in. So until that part happens, they won't be here. So I'm going to give us a C as well.
Good perspective. Bill, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of between everybody else in that having watched the transformation of this thing over the last 30 years or so, I'd say that when I read your question earlier, I'd written down a C+, so that's kind of about as far as I was willing to go, although I would have to say that I feel more comfortable being in the C plus B area. And I think that we have done a lot to be more inclusive. I think we've done a lot to have a lot of people more comfortable to come out. I think the fact that a number of years ago, that as visible as I've been in this industry, a lot of people have begun to kind of know that I'm gay. And so this is the first time in a public forum I've ever had the opportunity to speak on this. And so one of the things that I've found is that the more people knew about me, the more I would get private messages and calls and conversations wanting to talk about how they felt like that was such an inspiration in that, and I'm just living my life, so I don't want any of that inspiration. I'm just saying that they would tell me things that just being comfortable in my own skin and being able to be me out there made them feel more comfortable and capable of being able to be out there themselves. So to what a lot of everybody else has said, I think if you are are letting people see who you really are, I think that they'll come around. So, and before we run out of time, I just wanted to say, anybody that ever wants to talk to me about this at all, call me anytime. That's just, that's my blanket statement always on, whether it's the industry stuff or whether it's this conversation too, I'm available.
Well, it's when you talk so eloquently like this is why we're glad you didn't take the hint on that Lifetime Achievement Award and retire. All right, Giles, I'll let you have the last word. What grade would you give the industry?
Thanks, Jason. I think I almost divide this into two pieces. I think in terms of acceptance, I think we've actually come a long way. So I think from an acceptance standpoint, I think, the industry is probably at a B plus. Where I think we are lagging is in terms of action. Actions speak louder than words. And I think our industry is probably at a C minus in that respect. And I think that's why it's so important that, business owners within this industry do make these steps to address diversity within their organizations. And I think, there is still, as to Juliette's point, there is still transphobia within, even very recently, I've, had someone being transphobic and making a comment to me at an event. So I think, there's still areas where acceptance is also lagging, but generally, I think acceptance are in a fantastic place. I think now it's the time for straight allies, for business owners to really rally behind their employers, show leadership, so strong leadership, because this is part of being a good leader as well. And then I think we will start to see that grade hopefully go up in the next year or two. That's what I really hope.
Fantastic. All right, we only have like 2 minutes left, but I wanted to just leave it open for any of the panelists. Was there anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't touch upon? If we can do it in the last couple minutes. Alex, go ahead.
I'll just jump in and say this event was pulled together pretty quickly. I am immensely grateful for everyone who's participated. Jason, CE Pro, thank you for taking this on, moderating. And I'm amazed how many people have joined us. It's been just great. The discussion, if you've been following, is very lively. And so I feel extremely optimistic, more so now than before the panel. So just thank you everyone for being part of this.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for everybody attending. Thank you to the esteemed panel, and everybody have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you on the trail, as they say.